country, isn't. But Fuseni Issa is a former member of parliament for the Okanekwe North constituency. Some say he could be deputy finance minister very soon, because I've seen a list flying around. I don't know. And then Erika de Magbana. He is a deputy national youth organizer of the NDC. But this segment is brought to us by Nace Chocolate. Nace Chocolate is available all over the country and some places outside the country as well. It's so this is a whole pack of chocolates. It has ginger in it. It has raw cocoa. It has strawberry. It has everything. I mean, it's sweet. Something very sweet that you can enjoy. And it comes in handy. You also have the bottles and then the Doi pack sachet as well. It's good for everybody. Nutritious, healthy. It's good for every member of the family. It has the vitamins, the minerals that you need to kick up the day, keep awake and healthy and active. And then even at night, when you take it well, sometimes you see that you sleep soundly. Cocoa is good. It's a piece of Ghana, a taste of Ghana. It's original cocoa from Ghana. Buy made in Ghana. It's part of our homegrown policies to take us out of the economic doldrums that we find ourselves in. Gentlemen, well, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Johnny.
How are you doing?
Very well.
Good to see you. Why did you start laughing when I said you could be deputy minister?
I'm
saying my matter.
I mean, you read a number of headlines. Right. Some were quite
a Kokwanido headline.
Oh, I am not being, but some were quite interesting and got me. But let's see what God does. We thank God for another day. Right. And a new beginning, a new week.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Adam, how you doing?
Johnny, I'm doing great. And
looking all Wanish.
Again, good morning to you, to my senior colleague, Honorable Fuseni, and to all our viewers across the world.
Yesterday, the 10th anniversary was commemorated of the departed president and Professor Mills. Be gone unbelief. That's what reads on the frontage of the refurbished Asumdwe Park. Be gone unbelief. Kokwanido says the former president reveals himself to him, shows himself that he should give him a befitting place of burial. And that's just what has been done. What do you say?
Johnny, yesterday I was very disturbed. I'm very, very sad. I wasn't at any of the two events because I was caught up in maybe equally important duties elsewhere outside the capital. But I was very, very sad that you have a man whose life, whose service to the nation embodies unity and peace, a man who was a unifier, a man who loved his country to beat and died on duty in service to his nation. 10th anniversary, and we had two separate activities or events. And we could not hold one national event in honor of such a man, a man who was in office and exhibited high level of dignity, a man whose life we cannot describe here, and we say that he's a president who, though was insulted and all of those by political opponents who criticized him unfairly, his life is one that all of us would want to emulate. So to have President Mills, such a peaceful man, a unifier, 10 years on after his death, and we could not hold a single national event in his honor, for me, was terrible. But who should we blame? I will put the blame squarely at the doorstep of President Akufo-Addo and the government.
What has he done?
I'll tell you what. You see, Johnny, in this life, what we do sometimes, you call it as politics. It's a game of something and all of that. But sometimes it is only proper that when you have an elder in the house, the elder exhibits statesmanship and responsibility. President Mills was a national figure.
Right.
And so the NDC does not own President Mills. However, where he was buried, the Asumdwe Park, is a national monument. In fact, when you look at the time that the Asumdwe Park was built for President Mills to be buried there, it was done under the leadership or supervision of the national security.
Right.
And so NDC does not own Asomdwe Park. It's a national property. It's a national monument.
Right.
So when you, as president, you use the Coastal Development Authority to work with a gentleman who has been sacked from the NDC and who has formed some institute of a sort, parading himself as if he owns President Mills as an individual. You work with that person, you refurbish the Asomdwe Park, and you send an invitation to the NDC. You include that private person's NGO, and we wrote back to the Coastal Development Authority and said, look, we cannot be part of this commissioning if you don't do your things right, because it's a national affair. Why do you bring an individual who has been on a collision course with the NDC for the past 4 or 5 years, and because today what he does seems to be giving you some political advantage? See how President Akufo-Addo was engaging in pettiness, glorifying Koku-Anyidoho yesterday, making it look as if it was a fancy for Koku-Anyidoho. And you expect us to be part.
But Koku is the former president's special aide.
How many people were aides of former president? There were many others.
In terms of,
and I'm telling you that there were people who even worked more closely with President Mills than Koku-Anyidoho.
So an argument I had yesterday.
President Mills' family, the entire family came together and said, look, we are not aware of any Atta Mills Institute formed by any Koku-Anyidoho. The only heritage or foundation established in his memory that the family endorsed was the J.E.A. Mills Heritage Foundation, which was launched with the family being part. Recently.
I mean, so somebody made the argument to me yesterday that if it hadn't been for Koku-Anyidoho, maybe the NDC itself would have forgotten about Professor Mills, because
since 2013,
because hold on, may I put my question? Because he's been the one who has been talking about Professor Mills here, Professor Mills there, you know, this, that, Atta Mills Institute, all of those conversations, and he consistently, like him or not, he consistently has shown some bit of a loyalty to the man. So on the streets, that's what people think. People think that no, that's the guy who is pushing.
But Johnny, since 2012, President Mills died in 2012.
That's right.
Since 2013, every single year, Ghana as a country and the NDC as a political party has held events to honor Professor Mills. And so is this the first time we are having such an event that today we are saying that the NDC would have forgotten President Mills? Please, and what is loyalty? That somebody who has been sacked from a political party, whose political career has sunk so low, and the gentleman has decided to hang on the straw, hang on President Mills' name, and create an impression as though there is a Professor Mills camp in the NDC, and there is a Mahama camp and all of that. You contested for General Secretary. At the time Koku-Anyidoho was contesting for General Secretary in the NDC, we were celebrating President Mills. We held events to celebrate President Mills all this while. So what has changed? That just because you lost an election, you lost so miserably, you could not accept defeat. Today, you are all over the place and talking about President Mills, creating an impression as though somebody has forgotten President Mills. Nobody has. We have the J.E.A. Mills Heritage Foundation, which had very noble, very respectable people who worked with President Mills and his family.
My other question is this. In between the time when Professor Mills died, when Asomdwe Park was created, I mean, we all know, I mean, my colleague Edu Jemfi had done a story about the deplorable state of Asomdwe Park. Did the NDC, for example, make a proposal to government to go and, you know, refurbish it as it's been done now? Did you talk about it?
Johnny, the biggest question that we should even be asking ourselves is that...
I have asked you,
but in 2016, yes, I'll answer yours. In 2016, at the time the NDC left office, what was the state of the Asomdwe Park? Was it deplorable at the time? No. So a park that was built about 10 years ago, you certainly do not expect it to be in the same state as it is today than it was at the time it was built. And so if a year ago, people started talking about the deplorable state, who do we blame? Because like I said, when it was built under the NDC government, it became a national property, supposed to be managed by the national security. So who do you blame for the deplorable state? Like I said, Asomdwe Park is not a property of the NDC. And so if the NDC is in opposition and Asumdwe Park is in deplorable state, you blame the government of the day.
You've gone there year on year to hold memorials.
No, but we don't have, so you go there. When I visit a cemetery where maybe my dad was buried, to hold a memorial or place a wreath or something on his grave. Right. It does not mean that the cemetery belongs to me.
But you can ask questions.
So on my own, no. So I cannot on my own. You can ask questions. And who said that the NDC has asked severally every time? And it's a national security property.
What resources did you get?
That the government will do it. And today, if it has been done, why do you want to make it look as though?
Is the NDC disappointed that the concept of Asumdwe Park was to have it as a presidential burial place? Since the death of President Mills, Vice President Ebisata has gone to be with the Lord. President Rawlings himself has gone to be with the Lord. Mr. Kofi Annan, UN Secretary General, has gone to be with the Lord, and many others. None of them were buried there. So it's more like a President Mills burial center. All of them have been taken to the military cemetery.
You cannot have this.
No. So I'm asking my question. Allow me. Well, I'm saying that the concept is this: that it was supposed to be a presidential burial ground, correct?
Yes, but
now after President Mills, 10 years on, people have died of presidential status, been given the 22mm gun pounder burial, 21 gun salute, all of that, but none of them have been buried there.
But Johnny, you cannot have this conversation without paying attention to our cultural setting.
Right.
So yes, President Mills died as president. The family agreed for him to be buried there. The question is, the others that you are mentioning, did the family agree for them to be buried there? You can be a statesman, but when your family, and depending on what even the person writes, I know some former statesmen, very noble men who served this country, who wrote before their death where they should be buried.
Right.
When it happens like that, the states may not have control over where you are buried. Okay. And so the question is, did Kofi Annan, did Misata, did their families agree to be buried where they are buried today, or they wanted to be buried at Asumdwe Park and someone prevented them? So the Asumdwe Park is a national monument.
I hear you.
And so President Akufo-Addo engaged in sheer pettiness yesterday, and he must be ashamed of himself as president for leading two different, or for not uniting the celebrations or remembrance of a man who was a unifier. And we saw President Mills as president.
I hear you.
At least he's a man of dignity, not what we see today at the Flagstaff. Very shameful.
I hear you. Husseini. Prof. Mills.
Good morning.
10
good
years
morning
on.
Again, Johnny, and good morning.
Morning, my brother.
And then he's quite fiery this morning. And
he's wearing Bobby Wine's hat. Yeah, what do you expect?
A bit like the Malema, like. Adam, good morning.
Morning, bro.
Johnny, I think I saw glimpses of the ceremony.
Right.
Should I say the morning edition yesterday? I think that as a nation, it's good that we honor people like the former president. It's actually incumbent upon the nation to honor. But you see, for me, the uniqueness of President Mills' situation is that he died in office.
Right.
All the others that you mentioned had probably exited office before their demise. So it brings some uniqueness. At the time of his death, 10 years ago, for me, it's like, where were you when it happened sort of event? I recollect where I was and what I was doing at the time. We have moved on. But you see, as a nation, sometimes we have taken certain decisions and forget that when you are doing something for perpetuity, it's important that it's even embedded in law. There are things that should have been taking place for us to recognize a particular place as a presidential burial place or something. Because we can't do things because I am in power today. My whims and caprices.
Approach.
I piecemeal. We just do things and then we move on and we expect everybody to kind of be enjoined by it. But you see, as a nation, if we don't honor people like President Mills, it will probably break or people like myself and Adam who and probably Johnny Hughes who aspire to also serve this nation.
I mean, I'm serving my nation already. I'm not looking for a burial place.
Okay. I'm not saying that is the ultimate, but there comes a time.
Right.
I mean, you mentioned names that you think that were also names that people who had served
because they give them the same kind of presidential burial.
Exactly, and so could have also gotten that privilege. But as to the establishment of the Asumdue Park, I think that it's even time that we looked at its legal existence and all of that.
So you want a law to back it?
Yeah,
so that nobody will come and decide that.
I recollect there was a street naming ceremony after the passing of J.E. Mills.
Yes.
And I think
on
that
the high
before
street,
then, on the high street,
the high street
had a name,
yes,
J.E. Mills.
Yes, it was the high street, and then changed to J.E. Mills.
J.E. Mills
High Street, yeah.
Overnight. I am not too sure if the proper legal instruments went through. I am not too sure. Then there was the issue of the Okon hockey pitch thing. These are all things that Todise Okon, a pitch that had been named after Todise Okon, they needed to change it. It's not unique to the circumstances of Professor J.E. Mills. But I think that as a nation, we should be looking at this thing and actually getting laws to promote and actually guard some of these things. Look, I'm told that, this whole refurbishment of Asumdue Park didn't start just yesterday. The sword was cut way back in July 2020.
With recourse to the family? That's what
with recourse to the family.
The family said they were not.
I can understand the situation of the family. Personally, in fact, I could call the president's younger brother in parliament. I could call him my friend because we quite used to talk. As to the family, I've also heard legal minds say that when you rise to the extent of the presidency or at a certain level, you actually do not belong to your family anymore. You actually become a state property.
I've heard that argument.
And that is not to say that our cultural practices should be actually.
But if that is the case, why were the family engaged to perform rituals before he was laid to rest?
Of course, that's why I mentioned the cultural aspect of our life, because when you die, you become
family is family
of your family.
That's right.
You see, and so it's a fine line. But you see, from what I gather, at the sword cutting ceremony, which happened in July 2020, and there were stalwarts of the NDC present for this work to actually take place, including former President Rawlings, former Ambassador Beho, I think Honorable Mike Gizo.
Right.
He was also there. Samuel Kofi Atamils was also there. I didn't know in which capacity, whether he was representing the family, because he's a son. He's the only surviving son that we know. So his presence meant that there was some family negotiation. You see, as to how the family is, where the wife of the former president stands today, her relationship with the family, no, it's not for me. But it's not my business.
Could the government have? I mean, we had Mr. Atamils in Parliament. Could the government have pulled the brakes a bit and given some kind of, because
Johnny, I think the NDC had already taken a stance.
So the outlook. No, I'm not talking about the NDC. I'm talking about the family.
Okay.
I mean, his brother in Parliament, which you served with, who you served with, had mentioned that the family had not been engaged, and that Koko Anyidoho and the state were, in concert to do whatever. I mean, those allegations he made without, proof as we speak now. But I'm saying that when the government heard that, could the government, for example, have applied the brakes a bit and engaged them? Because all these ugly noises about such a noble man like Professor Mills, who was known as a man of peace, a man who achieved so much, got his PhD at age 27, it's not good. Don't you agree?
I don't know where you're coming from, and I don't.
I'm coming from Adesawe.
Amongst the names I mentioned who were present at the sword cutting ceremony at Asumdue Park to commence this refurbishment of the same venue was Samuel Kofi Atamils, a son and the only surviving or whatever, the only son that we know.
So how is it that the family is really concerned?
That is why I'm making a point as to where the widow of the late president stands.
That's right.
Where the son stands, where the rest of the family stands. It is not there. I don't think that it is a business of government to mediate or whatever. But we know that all is not too well amongst these parties who all belong to, who should all be, privy to some of this. So the presence of Samuel Kofi Atamils alone at the ceremony meant that there is some sort of consultation with the family. So I don't really see how Honorable Atamils will also come out and say that they were oblivious of what was happening. But given, I still maintain that if we had some very strong legal backing to some of it, because look, from what I gleaned from the media a week before this ceremony, I've heard people like Honorable Van der Poy on other platforms. I mean, the NDC had already taken a stance, and they maintain that they traditionally or usually will go there in the afternoon after the national or state ceremony is taking place in the morning. I don't know
could the president have brought them to the center?
That's why I'm saying that I don't know how that became a convention, where the state will do its ceremony in the morning and the NDC
but could the president, knowing that this is what they have said, and I'm sure his national security would have told him, could he have brought them to the center to say, look, let's find the middle ground. Let's do this at this time.
That is the problem. He alluded to the fact that the NDC wrote back after they've gotten an invitation. They wrote back and said that the involvement of Kweku, what's the name? Anidoho, was an impediment for them. Right. But this is a president who is trying to bring everybody, like you're saying, bring everybody on board.
Did the president try?
Did he try?
Yes.
But the NDC was formally informed
that
this was what was taking place.
And they told you that they were going to have a program at a different time.
That he alluded to the fact
I'm saying that
he alluded to the fact that
couldn't the government have pulled the brakes and say, look, we are doing this for a statesman. Let's all come to the middle.
Not too long ago.
So you can't be just like we did with e-levy. Yes, government wanted 1.75, correct? The opposition at some point 1%. They said bring it down. ISE mentioned 0.5, blah blah blah. Eventually we came to 1.5.
Let me even
we could have found the middle ground.
A closer ceremony, not too long ago, ex-president Rawlings passed.
Right.
We didn't have this rancor. There was arrangement. We recognize that he is a statesman.
Right.
The state took over the ceremony. The NDC played whatever.
Because the family was involved.
Whatever role.
The family was involved.
But this one too, the family is not.
But the family is the one asking the questions. The brother of family.
It's the brother of the man. Family.
I mean, if
the son not family, Johnny. Is the son not family? Yesterday at the ceremony, there were recognized people who had been with Professor Mills.
Are you suggesting? Are you suggesting to me that Touchwood, if you die today and your son comes up and your Ebusia Penny or your head of family is saying that he is not the man, I am the guy. You know, he doesn't represent the man. He doesn't represent the larger family.
He's not the man.
You are saying that you will be happy with that.
Well, you are the moderator of this show,
right?
But Touchwood. Your dad passes.
My dad is dead already. He died in 2015. So I've been to this.
I think that. Sitting here, me, my parents are alive, right? But if something happens, given, it is my responsibility.
Fuseni, you know,
it's my responsibility.
Fuseni, you know, my dad served there. He had 2 stars.
It is my responsibility.
He had 2 stars, 1 crown on the shoulder with a gorget here.
Wow.
Proper sword, everything. When my dad died, the state institution that he served, they engaged the family.
Of course.
They did stuff for us. They brought the regimental band, did this, that, but they engaged the family. And I my brother, and the deputy head of the family, we were the ones engaging them.
And I'm
went to Barry, went to hold the church service, everything.
And the question is, look, Samuel Kofi Atamils, is he not family? I'm not too sure if yesterday Nadu Mills was at
I'm sorry, I apologize.
But I think that we should move on.
We'll take a break. When we return, Professor Lord Mensah will join us. He's with the University of Ghana Business School. You do know that today is the major budget review. Earlier, it was announced to be held at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. Now it's going to be at 1 p.m. In Parliament, how do you say it? Afternoon? Forenoon, afternoon.
Forenoon,
Okay, we'll see you after the break. Welcome back and thank you very much indeed. This TV3Newday. This segment, the biggest news segment, is brought to you by Niche Chocolate, and it's affordable, available, and nutritious, healthy for you and yours. Eric Edemagbana is the Deputy National Youth Organizer of the NDC. Also, Hussein Issa is a former Member of Parliament for Okankwe North Constituency. And Professor Lord Mensah is with the University of Ghana Business School. Thank you very much for your time. Prof, good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very fine. And you?
I'm alive and well. Prof, I know you grew up in Fantiland. Quickly, we're talking at our meals. I'll give you a minute to also eulogize him. But because you are an academic, I want to focus on the Atta Mills Library. It's also in a deplorable state. What are you thinking? Should it be refurbished as well, like the government has done?
It has to. It has to. I think that was supposed to be even a priority. I mean, compared to the created, place that he was buried. Yeah, for me, let me correct this. I didn't grow up in a fancy land. Okay. I'm an Achimba.
Right. Sorry about that.
Yeah, but then in any case, that's fine. I'm a Ghanaian, and Prof. Mills, stood for something else, which in our dynamics of Fourth Republic, we have not seen any precedent that exhibit that kind of trait. And so for me, I'm happy he's been honored. But then, aftermath of the ceremony, it's like the split, which for me, if you look at what NDC has, with Mr. Alex Segbefia leading the team, and then what Kweku has. I think it's about time they symbolize what President Mills stood for, like coming together. To realize that the man was a unifier. And so after he's passed on, we can't have this confusion happening, in that space where anytime we mention his name, we'll say that Kweku has, an institution, which NDC also has,
created that.
The man was an NDC man.
That's right.
So effectively, whatever the case may be, the interests and the stakeholders are quite open. And I would say that they should put things behind them and then come together, forge a common front to indicate that, yes, the man really stood for unification.
Okay. Major Lai sends this one. He says, the peace treaty that ended the First World War was signed at 11 a.m. Hence, the Remembrance Day parade is commenced about a time to allow the sounding of the siren exactly at 11 a.m. Yesterday's afternoon's function was commenced at a time to allow the sounding of the siren at 1:30 p.m., the time J.E.A. Mills breathed his last. So the man talking. Anyway, so that's good information. Thank you very much, Major. That's some good information.
Wanted, right? I remember where I was.
That's some good information. I was in the newsroom somewhere at TV Africa at the time. Anyway, let's start off this way. Adam, the finance minister will be in Parliament today. What's on your mind?
Johnny, I can predict that he will appear in white, quote as many Bible scriptures as possible, repeat or re-echo the usual slogans that we've always known them for. But the bottom line is that they're very empty, and he will try and be dodgy. He will not give us the right picture about the economy, because that is what we have always known him for. And so I'm not expecting much. My confidence rather is in the fact that we have a minority in Parliament that will subject whatever he will say to scrutiny. Because for me, having listened to the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta since 2017 present budgets, the annual budget or mid-year budgets, nothing but slogans, pretense with the Bible scriptures and all of that. But we have not seen any outcome that shows that he is a man who is capable of managing the economy. And I'm happy that he's coming to the House at a time over 100 members of the minority have signed, hoping to submit a motion to have a vote of censure, because I think that in any serious country, looking at how Ken Ofori-Atta has mismanaged the economy, looking at the kind of decisions that he took and how he's been engaged in all of these conflicts of interest, where today, when you go to the financial sector, almost every deal that involves insurance companies by the state, it is his insurance company that takes those contracts. When you go to the banking sector, his friends and family, his cronies, have been appointed to head most of the state financial institutions, and he has presided over the worst management of the economy ever in the period of this country. That man does not deserve to remain a minister for finance. So I am not expecting much from him. His only stay in office is because of his familial ties with the president, and that is the reason why the people who wrote the Constitution thought it wise, and in fact, founders of democracy proposed that when you are making appointments, you avoid these family and friends, because when it happens, you will not be in a position to fire or dismiss the person, because there is no other explanation. Okay, there cannot be any explanation that justifies Ken Ofori-Atta's continuous stay in office, apart from the fact that he is related to our president. And so when he sacks him, it becomes a family matter. I
don't think he's qualified.
Qualified by how he's managed the economy, presided over this mess that we have today. Look at the decisions that he makes.
Covered
for example,
Russia, Ukraine.
Please. And I keep saying, my lecturer is here, I keep saying that even before COVID-19 came, we saw how Ken Ofori-Atta and Dr. Bawumia, with the president, mismanaged the economy. For example, one of the critical indicators that they were singing with, they sang a chorus with it prior to 2016, is the debt to GDP ratio. In fact, in the 2012 presidential debate, I recall President William Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo saying that in any economy, why, that's his name.
Go ahead.
He's trying to distract
how you suddenly pulled that up.
So, Johnny, President Akufo-Addo told the people of Ghana that any economy where the debt to GDP ratio is more than 56%, it means that the managers of that economy are incompetent and do not deserve to be there. But when he came, he moved the debt to GDP ratio from the 56%, using the rebase figures, to today we are well over 80%. And the IMF is predicting, other credible rating agencies are predicting that by 2024, if things continue this way, we may be headed to over 90% debt to GDP.
So you are not expecting anything, but you made
I'm telling you that he's a man, like we said, he will come, wear white, be quoting scriptures and deceive the people as if he's a saint. But we have seen that he's actually a corrupt man. We've seen how conflict of interest.
Slow down.
Johnny, I'm backing all of that. I can back it from the PDS, from even with the E-levy.
Leave
he told us
to the police to deal with.
I should leave corruption. But
Yoko and all those people.
But you see, we all know the kind of person he is. And I'm telling you that there's nothing different. If he wears any other color today, then it means that things have really changed.
You mentioned that and that's my last question to you before I move to Hussein. You mentioned that the minority, about 100 of them, have indicated that they want him out.
Yes.
Censorship. Don't you think that's smacks of hypocrisy, especially when the same minority had instigated a bipartisan investigation against the health minister in the Sputnik V deal? That vote is yet to be taken. That's marks of hypocrisy.
The Sputnik V deal, which the health minister
he admitted on
that
tape
processes, you see,
that he sidestepped Parliament, he sidestepped Cabinet, he wasn't thinking, he took that decision.
It is not a one-day event.
Right.
It is a process.
They got to the point. They got to the point where they had to take the vote. George Ewusu was in the seat. He postponed it. It's been postponed up to today.
So that process is still on. So George Ewusu, yes, we know, we expected him to postpone.
But the minority is not raising the questions.
No, but the minority is raising. I can tell you that the leadership of the minority, at least from the last briefing that we had from them, it is still a matter that they are still interested
if you want the people
I have
to trust
so much confidence.
If you want the people to trust you, take the health minister's matter, conclude it, and then you can come to
the way Parliament works, these issues are not
it doesn't mean that because the health minister's own is not done, we should wait for it to finish before. There are many other issues that Parliament is dealing with. There are many other committees that have been set up. We've not seen the report yet, but they are pursuing. But I'm telling you that, yes, I am also not happy with the delay, but I have confidence in the Honorable Haruna Idrisu-led minority, and I know that they will bring a closure to the issue related to the health minister and also that of the finance minister.
You know what? I followed this matter passionately because when we requested for interviews, the government of Ghana and its assigns refused us. Marcus Tobiasen of the VG newspaper spoke with Mr. Ofori-Atta, got him on record to say that they paid monies. We spoke to Marcus and he gave us the tape, and I played it here. So first day, Mr. Jimamenu said he didn't pay any money. Yes. Second day, after I played the tape, he admitted on tape that
and said he wasn't thinking
exactly. Now the committee had finished its work, brought it to the plenary, and where they had to take the vote. I'm saying that if you want us to believe that you have what it takes to get Mr. Ofori-Atta out, show us evidence and show working with the health minister. Then you can win the trust of the people. Until that time, when you have done all the processes, exhausted all of them, and got into where you had to take the vote, and you decided that we won't take the vote since last year, and you are here telling me that you want Ofori-Atta out.
No, it's not a minority that
instigated
that.
If not,
they are instigated it. Like I said, it's a process. I am confident that we will bring a closure to the matter relating to the health minister and that of the finance minister. But Johnny, in order to renew confidence in our economy, one of the things that we must do as a matter of urgency is to get the finance minister out.
Okay.
I speak to industry players.
Get the health minister out first.
He will be out. He will be out too.
Opportunity.
He will be out too, but the finance minister must go.
Okay. Fuseni, you are starting a process that is going to be long. When you have already gotten to a point, the food is cooked, serve it and eat it, you say you are now going to start another meal. I won't trust you.
Johnny.
Fuseni, what are you expecting?
Johnny, the minister is going to Parliament today to give us an update. And this is embedded in law, the Public Financial Management Act. Actually guides our budgeting and our public financial issues. You recollect that in November last year, the minister had gone to present a budget to Parliament. It was passed. In fact, the Appropriations Act was passed December, but so certain key policies actually delayed, especially the e-levy one until about April when we managed to get it through. The law requires that midway in the year, the minister goes back to Parliament to give an update on the performance of the fiscal policy that he had presented and how the nation was doing. Today, the minister is going to Parliament, and I expect him to highlight a few things. Not too long ago, he had a national event where he actually announced certain cuts within the public sector, especially on the expenditure side. I expect him to give us some updates. In the very recent times, we've seen some monetary policies from the Bank of Ghana regarding interest rates and all of that. I expect to get an update on that one as well. Even the policy like e-levy, how the e-levy has performed since we started operationalizing it. I will expect an update as well. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we got wound of the fact that it is underperforming the projections. So I expect that we have some updates and whatever measures needs to be taken to ensure that we get to the optimum level that we have set ourselves. And we also identified that we are not in normal times. The instance of COVID, the Russian-Ukraine issues, and fuel prices issues, and inflation, where inflation is today, we expect the minister to come up with certain measures to actually cushion the average
review of free SHS.
I don't think that you expect to hear anything. But then also, it's essential that since the decision was made to engage the fund, I think this is the first IMF. This is the first public or parliamentary duty that minister. I will expect to have some updates, especially knowing that some meetings have commenced and the negotiations are ongoing. I expect the minister to also give us some updates on that.
Would you expect a further cut In terms of government, we were told the members of the executive are cutting 30% of their income. We're not being told where the money is going, what it's being used for. But then people say, look, if you increase your salaries, way beyond what you're getting, and then you cut it by 30%, just as if you are getting what you used to get plus a little more, minus the extra that you're
I don't think members of the executives have increased their salaries.
Any salary increment for them?
They take the annual increment that is announced. That's what.
So they got 7% like labor.
I tell you, that's what
they got.
That's what pertains.
7%.
That's what pertains. I tell you.
I see.
Yeah, I tell you.
So the over 70% increment that we hear is
where from that 70%. You see.
That's why I'm asking you. You are here. That's why you are here.
That is why I mentioned a law like the Public Financial Management Act. Right. It's actually one of the best laws for me that we have in this country. It makes everything very transparent, the budgeting process and all of it. And so you can scroll down to see where the salary levels of the members of the executive were last year and where it is today. And then you can do your own computation. And this is public knowledge. The data is available on our website of the Ministry of Finance.
I see.
So I expect that I hear things on initiatives like YouStat, where we are, where the funding is going to come from, and then also, especially for a policy like NAPCO, I think that the minister will bring some sort of finality to it today.
Dr. Makisibe versus NAPCO is gone. Forget about it. He says planting for food and jobs. He doesn't know what it is.
I listened to Dr. Makisibe, a very good friend of mine. But yes,
did you hear him say NAPCO is gone?
But NAPCO was supposed to be a 3-year program.
And people have been asked to stay on.
That's why I'm saying that expect to hear something on NAPCO today. I'm not going to preempt what the minister is going to say in public, but in Parliament at 1. But I'm saying that I expect that some of these things will happen, and that's the essence of us having a media review.
Okay.
So and also about our macroeconomic indicators, where we are today. Inflation, at least when he read the budget in November, and where we are today. I mean, we are in the ranges of 29, in excess of 29%. I'm sure he's going to tell us how we got here and what the projection is for.
Is he supposed to be telling us how we got here, or is supposed to be taking us out?
Where the projection
his job is to take us out, not to lead us into the
He's going to mention. I mean, there's been revision in GDP growth. I mean,
but his job is not to be telling us how the problem happened.
Of course, but if you have given me a job of what to do, and I am responsible to reporting to you, I need to explain to you, tell you why there's been some movement within the macroeconomic indicator. Yes, of course. You don't expect this indicator to be static. So I expect that he's going to mention some macro our reserves, our reserves, our debt situation. I expect to hear things like that.
I hear you. We are a proud country. We won't go to IMF. Those were the words of Ken Oferiatta. Danny, play that video for me quickly, and then I'll bring in Prof.
Okay, quickly. Let me say something.
Danny, play that video for me,
you
Michael.
See, the press release when that came out at the time of its decision for us to engage the fund was an express instruction of the president. I'm telling you that we've had precedents in this country. At the time of President Kufuor, when the decision had to be made whether or not to go HIPC, the finance minister disagreed. I mean, it was public knowledge.
What exactly are you trying to do? Are you trying to clean up the finance minister?
I'm telling you that at the end of the day, we run an executive presidency. And the president has the ultimate responsibility. I can sit on TV today, say what I think or what I project, but the ultimate responsibility.
I think you're just trying to clean up the finance minister. Don't worry. You will get your deputy ministerial position. It's okay.
It was the same. It was the same.
It's okay. Play the video for me, please. I see what you're trying to do. Play the video for me.
Going to the IMF. Whatever we do, we are not. The consequences are there. We are a proud nation. We have the resources. We have the capacity. Don't let anybody tell you. Like when Joshua, Caleb, and 10 others went to spy on the promised land. And only 2 of them came to say that we can do it. And the 10 went around the community murmuring, you can't, We are not people of short sight.
Bible examples are always common with Ms. Oforiatta. Prof.
But
your time is up.
I know my time is up, but I just need to...
Your lecturer is here, I should say. So let's give Prof his due.
Prof understands.
Thank you. If not, your IA will suffer. Prof, take a bite on this matter. What are you expecting? I mean, this was the finance minister not so long ago, assuring us all that we won't go to the IMF. Now we are at the IMF's table. Things are not good. Exchange rate is what it is. I've seen fuel drop a bit, but it's still quite high. Cost of living is there. We can't find food to feed our children in school. They have had occasion to cancel extracurricular activities, science and maths quiz, super zonals, interzonals. I mean, so we are not in a good place. Did you see this coming?
Well, I would say yes, because looking at the happenings, I mean, over the years, over the months, I mean, as we move from January to June, I mean, clearly the posture of the country, I mean, indicates that we're finding it difficult to raise funds.
Right.
And especially when we got a downgrade from this international community.
Right.
Rating agencies.
Fitch, Moody's,
Bloomberg. You see, the Ghanaian economy was so much dependent on external inflows.
Right.
I always say that we got to a point where we sacrifice, I mean, the production capacity of the country to think about how we can get inflows easily from the Eurobond market. You know, as a country, you look at how you can produce and export and get in dollars. But then we got to a point where we saw raising of funds, you know, from the Eurobond market so easy that that is the only way we can get dollars into our environment. Forgetting, you know, our measures or policies that we're rolling out to make sure that we improve or we diversify our export. So if you take the prospectus that we normally use in borrowing across over the years, clearly it tells you that anytime we are going to borrow, we borrow to offset existing debt and then borrow in excess to come and, you know, build our buffers of dollars. Buffers of dollars. And that is what cushions the economy most of the time. So we got a downgrade, and it turns up that we can't go to the Eurobond market again.
Right. But you want.
Well, of course.
You won in 2019.
It was expected because of the trajectory of our expenditure. Our expenditure was growing every now and then without building up into revenue generation.
Okay.
You see the two parameters that we see. One is serving as input. The other is serving as an output. So when you spend, we are expecting a mapping increase in revenue over the year. It might not be contemporaneous.
Okay.
So you spend this year, at least the projects that you engage in and all those, we expect that in the next 2 years, 1 year, it will yield something. But we're not seeing that. And that is why I was cautioning at the time that we should be careful. But let's come back to the expectations.
Today.
I'm not expecting an overly optimistic, you know, budget review.
Why is that?
Why is that? In the sense that if you look at the posture of our budget readings over the years, we seem to be aggressive. We seem to want to waste, like we yearn to spend more, whilst we struggle to generate revenue. And so effectively, this particular review is going to be a major one. A major one in a sense that the dynamics on the ground, as we saw before the 2022 budget, is completely different. And I will say that the 2022 budget, I don't really see the essence of that budget because projections went wrong. If you take, for instance, E-levy. E-levy were made to know that at least we should be able to rake in 7 billion, all things being equal. If I'm making a projection, because it's more or less a gray area that I'm touching, I warn that we used to have our classical way of sending money across. And that was still in memory. It wasn't that old then that people would be comfortable with E-levy that they cannot do away with. And immediately we introduced what has happened. It's like people are having alternatives to send money across and all those. So we had to be careful then. But we were made to know that for sure we're going to get 7 billion. And through that, we removed tolls and all those, And we're losing money out of the tolls that we removed.
That's right.
And so effectively, and look at inflation now as we speak. It's eroding household income. Whatever you're making now will be eroded by a percentage.
Right.
I mean, and I can tell you that the essentials, daily bread, if you look on the table here, the inflation is more than the 29.8. That is
your dining table
inflation is more than 50%. So effectively, I'm expecting this review to look at the statistical data that came out. It shouldn't give us anything in quantitative, we say perpendicular to, I mean, like the budget review is moving this way, and then
but expectations are high. I mean, NAPCO beneficiaries have been opposed for 6 months. They have been paid. NSS allowances have delayed. Youth and afforestation, yes, they are asking for what do you call it? Today is what's the 25th, right? So NSS allowances for June should have been paid by now. It's not been paid. And we all did national service, so we know how it works. It's been arrears for 2 months. I mean, so forget about the official communication.
Right.
They owe the children.
It's something that I was coming to.
They owe the money. So I'm just raising the initiatives that government has. YEA here, youth and afforestation, there, NAPCO, this, that. All of them have expectations that money should be released to them. Nursing training allowance, teacher training allowance. But the government is cash strapped. Do you get the sense that government, for example, is going to say, look, let's put these things on ice so that we can get the fiscal space to do some of the things, release us out of this, quagmire, and then we can come back to you?
Yeah, I foresee that happening. You see, the arrears clearance should be one of the major themes in the review as we speak now. And like I said, inflation has been eroding people's homes. So if you have any money stuck with the government, even if you receive it now, the value will not be the same as if you were to receive it at the time. Now, let's look at, when we talk about budget, it's projections.
That's right.
You make projections of what you can generate and then what you can spend. And I always look at the expenditure lines I categorize them into two.
Right.
We have what we call discretionary expenditure and then non-discretionary expenditure. Now, with the discretionary expenditure, I think government can do something about it. So if you have something like Agenda 111,
that's right.
You don't necessarily have to provide 101 hospitals.
But there was a promise made.
Now, it was a promise.
Towards the campaign.
Like you said, we are hard up now. If your household is hard up, what do? You ration expenditure. You make sure that the most important ones that can keep you afloat, that can make you survive, is what you touch on. So you're thinking about maybe expanding, school feeding, free SHS to vocational and technical institutions. It was in the budget. They were all policies that were there. Why do you have to expand it at this time? We don't need it. So those are discretionary.
National Cathedral?
National Cathedral wasn't captured in the budget.
Right.
It wasn't captured in the budget that the state is going to spend money on that. So I'm very careful when I'm talking about those.
Well, but we have seen money going there.
Hello.
I'm telling you, we've seen money going there, even without parliamentary approval.
We must confirm that. Hold on. It wasn't captured. We're speaking to the budget. We're speaking to the budget.
So you see,
it wasn't captured in the budget.
I'm raising that because you're talking about discretionary spending.
Yes.
And I'm saying that we have seen the government, even in 2020 when we were hard up and we were all talking COVID, government was busy spending money on the National Cathedral, even without recourse to Parliament. So I don't get the indication. I don't get the indication now.
Government cannot go to Parliament on National Cathedral because it wasn't captured in the budget.
So
Parliament approves appropriations, and if they should go through the law, the PFM Act. Parliament will not approve anything.
But then, because you mentioned discretion, Article 296 of the Constitution talks about discretion.
Right.
Now, the government is spending. You are asking for government to pull the brakes on discretion.
Pull the brakes on discretion.
But then there's indication that government is still spending. In fact, the National Cathedral Secretary just celebrated our cathedral not so long ago.
Well, I don't want to go there.
Work is ongoing.
I'm speaking to what the budget.
So I'm mentioning
it will influence.
I'm mentioning it's just one of the things. Right. Agenda 111 is there. Right. There are many other things that the government is doing, which necessarily was not captured in the budget.
Sure.
Are you suggesting that all those things be put on ice?
That is fantastic.
So that the government can focus on.
That is the expectation. That is the expectation.
But will government do that?
That is the expectation.
Will government do that?
Well, history has never supported that government will do that. But if we really want to keep this economy on track, if we really want to bring this economy, and more so, we've started engaging IMF.
Right.
IMF will not just come as Father Christmas. I mean, you just want to spend. So you've engaged us, so we are coming to give you money. You have to put the economy in a certain posture.
Right.
You have to situate the economy in such a way that you are ready to reduce expenditure.
Okay.
You have to situate the economy in such a way that you'll be prepared to generate revenue. So effectively, if you are cutting expenditure, you can't cut interest rate because that is, that is non-discretionary.
Right.
You can't cut, salaries. That is something that you must pay for production to go on.
Right.
So effectively, that is why I'm touching on the, discretionary expenditures. So, and those are the capex, the capital expenditure.
Right.
That I know we need those infrastructure set to make things comfortable for the people. But you can stagger the delivery. You don't necessarily have to deliver all at a time.
What should the communication be? Apologize to the people that, look, we said we're going to do this, we can't do this at this time because we have this, and so we're going to stagger it. Because government's tone has never been that of, apologizing. So, for example, government has agreed.
You may not apologize, like in our home. Sometimes we don't apologize to our wives. We change our behavior.
But because they don't pay taxes to you.
Hold on.
They don't pay taxes to you.
Yeah, I might not necessarily apologize, but my attitude, my behavior may necessarily, show that, look, I've regretted on what...
Do you get that sense from government, the behavior of government?
Well, with the IMF engagement, I foresee that happening in this budget. That is why I said we're going to have a major budget review in a sense that all the projections that we did, from the 2022 budget, we're not getting the realization. They are far away from what is being realized now. So, and with the presence of IMF, the engagement now, we should see a major review. So,
look, Labour, for example, got 15% COLA. They were demanding for 20%. They got 15% COLA. Mind you, sometimes...
Even the 15% government is not paying.
Right.
They're paying 10%
They are paying,
for now.
Exactly, and they'll pay later.
Yes.
There's
But
also...
that was not in the 2020
budget. Yes, but I'm saying that... Yes, so...
but when you are budgeting, you should expect an increment. So,
certainly.
Yeah, obviously.
Yes.
Now, aside the...
Physicals were not reflective of the
but aside COLA, there's also neutrality allowance, which will be ready for eating in August.
Eating?
Yes, because you have signed on to it. You have agreed to neutrality allowance. Yes, you have.
I still struggle to...
Well, it's not you. I'm saying government has gone to the table and has...
Prof needs a neutrality.
I'm saying, so, Prof...
But that is not you tag requesting.
Prof.
I will speak to that.
Well, I want you to speak to this.
Yes.
We're talking about not having the money now, so we need to put certain things on ice. COLA has come. Government is paying 10, now will pay 5 in the future. Neutrality allowance, which was agreed, which was a bone of contention, is also getting ready to be paid.
Right.
Does government have what it takes? Because if not, then Labour will agitate again. It grinds the economy to a halt.
You see, you are looking at government not having what it takes because you've frozen all other things and thinking the request is what it will put pressure on the government. I made mention earlier that you budget, right? You allocate, you assign certain expenditure lines. But then if you're hard up, you reassign and possibly reallocate. So I'm expecting a major review where several expenditure lines will be sacrificed to make room for some of these demands. Let me talk about the neutrality allowance. You see, sometimes we make a mistake and the government is having problems because of the approach of negotiations they've been adapting over the years. Union group turns up to be on strike, you go and corner them somewhere. Then you discuss, okay, so what can we do? We don't want other groups to also come in. So we're going to couch something uniquely to suit medical doctors, to suit, workers of maybe a certain category. And you come up with neutrality allowance. It's a salary top-up. The salaries are not enough. So people are going out there to request for more. But then, if you are to negotiate, right?
One size fits all.
One size fits all, you will not have this problem. So neutrality allowance is not just by name neutrality allowance to say that I want to remain neutral. I don't want to engage in politics because I'm a public sector worker. And as a result of that, give me allowance to remain neutral. No, it's a top-up. It's a top-up because... Yes, it's a salary.
Because the main one is not enough. So
it's not enough.
You throw in everything
so government
to
says,
show
okay, fine. I don't want you to also come in that you have gotten increment. So let me count something for you. Then they give a name like that to it. You see, but some of the name thing we have to be careful with the names.
I hear you.
But if anybody hears that you are paying to try to, it doesn't make sense. As a UTAG, a lecturer, I still have to remain neutral. So if I go on the street and come and request for, because I can bombard my students in the lecture hall with politics, and it can affect so many things. So effectively, So at the end of the day, what I'm saying is that this budget is going to see a major review, a major one.
Which is going to put pressure on the people?
Not necessarily. For the people, I expect the government to give them incentive, tax incentive, more or less. Some of the levies, I'm expecting a review, a downwards review.
Like what?
Like those petroleum levies and all those. So that it will cushion, transportation and all those. Because if you look at the inflation digits that came out in June.
Yeah, 29.
If you look at the top, the categorizations, the essentials that we normally use every now and then are the ones that the inflation are high.
That's right.
You look at transportation, you look at food, you look at water, you look at housing,
oil,
you look at those are things that we consume every day. So I'm expecting that if there's any levy of that sort, maybe oil we import more of the sunflower and all those. So if government is cashing in at the port, right? Taxes. Let me give you a bit of education here. Yeah. When government takes up taxes, it goes through a process, right? It goes through, kind of a basket. And government does the allocation. They bring, a kind of life to you, give you education, give you good roads and all those. If things are difficult and the people are facing, are in tough times, you can directly provide that convenience, for them by reducing the taxes. Not necessarily taking the money, but then rather give them rebate of taxes, and in the end, it will cushion their homes. So I'm expecting a kind of
easier said
revision
than,
of some of them.
Easier said than done. No. Because the government is constantly telling you that I need this money to do this.
You need the money, but listen, economically, right? If the people are comfortable, production goes up. So giving them that rebate now is more or less like deferring.
Okay.
Kind of
you collect it later.
That you can collect later. It's like giving us freebies during the COVID time. We foresaw that we'll pay it back. Do you get it? So,
but the government says it's still free.
No, it's not free. In economics, there's no free
lunch.
Well,
the government keeps saying
there is no free
So for that, I will say today.
There is no free lunch. It's a political package.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
I hear you. Take a minute. Prof. take a minute each, and then Prof will wrap up for us.
Yeah, Johnny, I think that one thing that is critical is the fact that all these unpaid allowances, especially to young people, even the media seems quiet about it. Very few of you talk about it. Beyond NAPCO and the National Service personnel, we have nurses, the newly recruited nurses. They've not been paid for a year plus. Nursing and teacher training allowance, it has been in arrears for the past 6 or 7 months. Then we have a crisis at the senior high school level where food, Johnny, to get food in the secondary schools today is a miracle. When you go, what they are doing is that on days that they serve them beans, the students can actually count the number of beans. No, Johnny, it's a serious issue.
Which school?
It's a serious issue.
Which school?
Go around the schools, almost all the secondary schools.
People counting
so almost all the secondary schools. Just last week,
they can count the beans in the
just
plate.
last week, Johnny, your sister station, Joy News,
right,
did some documentary from the north about 8 different schools. They zoomed the camera on the plate, and you can actually see it.
Was there too much garlic in it?
No,
so the beans
Johnny, this is a critical issue to the extent that for some of the schools now, parents are being charged an amount of money to feed the children. For example, in Wesley Girls, parents are being charged 500 cedis and 1,000 cedis. Depending on
the level or and all of that. Those who are in the final year, because they will be staying to prepare for the awasi, they are charging their parents about 1,000 cedis extra.
And that is for schools that have strong
PTAs.
PTAs,
because for those schools, the PTAs have decided that we're not going to listen to government that we are not charging. We need to save our children.
In fact, I heard a tape from the Infantswim school PTA chairman who was saying that parents should come and support. I still have that tape.
They are doing it
because they didn't want the point where the children will now
across board, and that is happening in almost all the senior high schools because the government has not been able to pay those who supply food to the buffer stock company, and so our younger brothers and sisters in senior high schools are hungry. They are not getting food to eat. These and many other areas have been left unpaid. So when Ken comes today, beyond the script, if he wants to be quoting scriptures, we can wait for the National Cathedral to be built for him to be a pastor.
Do you have a scripture you want to give to Honorable
No, he's behaving like, when we were in secondary school, we used to engage in this competition called quote I quote, where we memorize memory verses, and sometimes when we remember the kind of things that we do even before quoting, Ken can equally win that competition, no doubt. But managing an economy is a serious business. He shouldn't come and play to some religious gallery and quote scriptures and leave the very fundamental issues unaddressed.
Okay, I hear you, Hussaini.
I mean, these are critical issues that the government is faced with today, and nobody is saying that all is well with us as a people. Essentially, we've been through some of the very difficult things in living memory, and as a result, it's affected every facet of our very existence. And it's actually
but we can't keep our children hungry.
It's actually yes,
I
admit, and I agree with Prof. I agree with Prof. That's why we have this provision and the realignment of our fiscal policies. I mean, should be able to resolve some of these things. You see, the description he gave about the number of beans it reminds me when I went to secondary school. Right in the 80s, when I went to boarding school in Presec.
Presec is a DB school. How come you
I'm telling you, in the 80s, you know what we had for them. I'm not rationalizing today's situation. But it just reminds me, I mean, we had 2 ladles of cocoa for breakfast. So, talk about bread. I mean, it was not existent.
But we were in a difficult time at the time. We didn't have planting for food and jobs. And Mr. Kwesi,
that's why I'm making a point, and I'm not rationalizing it. But it just reminds me.
Surprisingly, Professor Kwesi, what you mentioned a few months ago, that we're going back to 1983. Same Ken Oforiatta says it's a lie. He mentioned it.
I think that.
I remember it. He mentioned that we're getting to that point.
I don't know, John. If you live through 1983, you will know that, Charlie, the experience in 1983, it's out of this world.
But your children can't find food to eat in school.
You see,
the parents are not complaining that the boys are breaking their chore boxes and stealing. I can only imagine what the girls will be doing. They are breaking into chop boxes. I can only imagine what the girls will be doing to survive.
In school, breaking chop boxes and stealing food.
Yes.
In school.
Yes.
In boarding school.
Yes, the parents said it on tape themselves.
I'm on TV, so I don't want to say something.
You have broken chop boxes before.
I'm going to be very guarded. But essentially, the situation is that we are not in normal times. Right? I expect that there will be some reallocation and realignment within the budget to be able to resolve some of these teething problems. I mean, the school food situation, it shouldn't even happen in the first place.
Okay.
But then we have an opportunity to move on from it.
Right.
So that's what it is.
Prof, you have the closing thoughts.
Yes, I think we have, with the school one, we really have to be careful because the kids that we've brought them up for the past 20 years, they don't have the resistive, capacity Honorable had in the 80s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Those kids, as we speak now, a little stress.
Pure that be.
Oh yeah, you can expose them because the standard of living has improved over the years.
That's right.
And so they are a bit softer compared to some of us. So we have to be careful on that. But then I'm looking at 5 major, policies that government must look at.
Guide us.
In a way quickly to. So possibly look at the Agenda 111.
Okay.
Right. Not to extend, the the free SHS to vocational and technical schools. You should tone down.
But then if you say that, then somebody will say, sorry. If you say that, somebody will say, look, it's the same kind of thinking that has collapsed majority of our private secondary schools.
Yeah, we'll come to that. But then we have time. Let's cushion the economy to the point where we'll be comfortable, and then we start implementing.
So not expand it to
not to expand it. Go for that. Even the one that you're rolling out, you are struggling. Now,
but a review doesn't mean cancellation in this instance.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean cancellation.
No,
because
not
the government said review means cancellation.
Well, for the last budget, they said they're going to extend.
Right.
So you don't need that extension now. Make sure what you have works.
Okay.
That's all we need.
Right.
And then the last one, the last two that I'll talk about is, commence operations for 4 assembly plants that we're talking about. There's an industrialization. We need them all right. But then if for now, we can hold it up for some time before we can come back to that.
Okay.
I'm also looking at one district, one factory, which they indicate they're going to continue with it. I mean, for the past 6 years, this is one district, one factory. I'm not seeing anything out of it.
Oh.
So if we can hold it for now,
123 or so.
Hold on. If we can hold it for now,
I'm impressed.
and then continue with planting for food and jobs. Planting for food and jobs should be targeted.
Okay.
We shouldn't go all out.
Has it been beneficial?
I look at
where's
the policy.
The food we plant?
You listen to me. I look at the policy and I ask myself, in our homes, what do we eat more often? It's rice and then what, beans, right? So why don't we focus on this rather than this exotic food that we produce?
Well, but on the planting of food and jobs, there's maize, there's sorghum, there's millet.
There is, but at what quantity? Have we got to a point of producing maize where we can stop importing maize? The point where we're producing beans where we can stop importing beans?
Okay. I'm sure the poultry farmers will talk to you. Man had to shut his poultry farm down because Charlie. Messages. Let's put the first one up. Let's quickly read the messages and your messages now on the screens, and you can always send us your messages as well. Said Prof. Mills, as a president, did a remarkable work for this country. Unfortunately, his 10 years commemoration has turned into cheap politics, which will not put food on our table nor make our economy recover. If his family was recognized from day one, I don't think this avoidable error could have been made by one unscrupulous person who wants to use his death as smokescreen to enrich himself. If you are not a family member, you have no business closer to the dead. Most Abattoir from Aswasi sent that one. Johnny, the fracas between Koko Anyidaho, the family of former President Mills, and the party he served is unnecessary. They could have come together to make a successful commemoration. It is total embarrassment to the dead who is gone before us and the party that he belonged to. Walanyo and Akwetia sent that one. Johnny, since when did loyalty become a substitute for family traditions of people? My question to you is that, will you like your late family to be treated like the way Prof. Mills is being treated? Compare what has been done at Chebi Cemetery and what has become of the Kwame Nkrumah Museum. That's from Ambassador Sampiale. He sent that to Hussein. He says, Johnny, the law is settled that when a person dies, no matter his status, the body reverts to the family. No president has ever been buried without the consent and input from the family. What is Fusedi saying about street names after Prof. Mills to come to Second D and Takrady, and all our streets have been named after Edward Akufo-Addo and other MPP politicians? Ambassador Sampiale said that one. Majority of Ghanaian citizens have lost hope in this government, and we have been disappointed. It's now clear that Ghanaians made a mistake by voting for Akufo-Addo Bawumia government. Where is the money MPP government generated from the toll booth since they took power from NDC administration? Kwamina, Acidity, Ahafo Njirapa, and both saddened and peeved by the hypocritical nature of Akufo-Addo and his cronies in partisanship with Koko Anyidaho, claiming to love Prof. Mills even more than his family when they wished him dead and called him all sorts of names. Today, they associate heavily with him even more than his mourning family. Salvius Benny from Jerapa sent that one indeed. Adabana has been my guest. He is a Deputy National Youth Organizer of the NDC. He's wearing his Bobby Wine hat. I know this is your new look, right?
Yes.
And Hussein Issa is a former member of Parliament for the Okaikwe North constituency, coming finance minister, deputy finance minister. And Professor Lord Mensah is with the University of Ghana Business School. Thank you very much, Prof. Indeed, for spending your money. Yeah. Honorable Ablajifa Gomashi. Yes. Later. We'll put a picture up very shortly. Yes, we'll put a picture up later. We have a whole package. We'll see you after the break. The sports and more conversation here on TV3Newday. Thanks to Grandpa Clothing. Danso Man for my outfit. It's made in Ghana. 020-985-5696. Again, 020-985-5696. Get something special for you. When you wear it, respect comes to you, and you can get into big places. See you after the break.